Hi everybody. I saw this at the store and I had to have it. National Geographic, 50 most influential figures of the Bible. And I'll skip ahead to New Testament. Here is the Messiah. Messiah means saved one. And he probably had dark hair. He was Jewish. Rembrandt created this very human portrait of Jesus around 1650. So there is Jesus, not all in gold and shiny, but normal looking. Here's a picture of Jesus, the Messiah, light of the world, bread of life, living water, etc., etc. Opposite page, 12th century mosaic of Jesus from the Hagia Sophia, Istanbul. And up here is Gabriel von Max painted Jesus raising Jairus' daughter. So Jesus did many miracles. And I think he touched her hand, Jairus' daughter's hand, and she revived. I'm not sure if she was dead or she was sick, but God healed her. Here is the raising of Lazarus. So Jesus rose from the dead, and one of his greatest miracles was the raising of Lazarus. And he said, untie his... So Lazarus was bound up, buried, died in the tomb. God waited couple days, and then he went and saw Lazarus, who was his friend. They loved each other, and Mary and Martha were sisters. And Jesus called out, Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus came out, and Jesus said, undo his robes or his ties. So he's all tied up and buried. Isn't life like that? We feel like we're dead, but then God calls us to life, does something new, and revives us, gives us new life. Judas Iscariot. So where is my notes? This is the taking of Christ, 1602, by Caravaggio. Judas kisses Jesus as soldiers rush in to arrest him. So Judas was one of the 12 disciples. And he betrayed Jesus. Sorry about that light there. I'm going to turn off the light in just a second. Oh, helps a little bit. So Judas said, I'll tell you who Jesus is, because you want to kill him and arrest him. So I'll give him a kiss. So I think in that culture, people would kiss each other. Hello, how are you? And Jesus' hands down here are... Jesus just allowed himself to be arrested. That's what I see when I see his hands folded down there. Jesus was at the Garden of Gethsemane. Judas came and kissed him. And then here is the soldier's arm to arrest him. So we'll say Judas Iscariot, disciple, friend of Jesus, who betrayed him and turned him into the Pharisees, the legal religious people at that time. And I think the Pharisees took him to Herod and Pilate in the government. So Judas' kiss is betrayed Jesus. It was to identify Jesus and which person he was in the group. Which one is Jesus? We need to arrest him. And Judas said, I'll kiss him, and that's the one. So Jesus was betrayed by a kiss. And then he was sent to the government officials, Caiaphas and Pilate. And a few years ago, Caiaphas' burial casket or box or remains were found. So there's a lot of history here. Jesus Before Caiaphas by Giotto di Bondoni. Then this ossuary may have contained the bones of Caiaphas. It's kind of a pretty one, pretty box. Here is Jesus with his halo and gold. That's called a halo. And I think they're fighting over, many people said, hey, Jesus said he was going to destroy the city and in 3 days raise it up. But it was there, so that everybody was lying about him and giving testimony. And I think they're so upset it's ripping his clothes. I don't remember what verse that was. So there's Jesus being arrested and fighting around Caiaphas, arguing. He has done nothing wrong. No, he has. He said he was God. So arrest him, kill him. So we don't have any pictures here of the crucifixion. Here, let me show you my notes about Caiaphas. Caiaphas and Pilate, they sent Jesus to the cross, and Pilate washed his hands and said, my hands are washed of this. It's not my fault. They sent Jesus to the cross, and Caiaphas's remains have been found. Maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So that's Caiaphas and Pilate. And the crucifixion, death, and resurrection. Crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. And then his followers went on to spread the good news about Jesus. And many of them were martyred and killed. So I think this is the first martyr is Stephen. And he looked up and they said his face was like the face of an angel. He was like, I think he said forgive them as well. And this is the martyrdom of Saint Stephen. Is the work of the Spanish artist Juan de Juanes. So this is moving on from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are 4 different tales about Jesus. And then Jesus dies and the disciples go on and carry his message. This is Acts 7:48. Stephen was the first martyr. He was stoned. Everybody picked up a rock and threw it at him. And that's how he died. And then I have Philip on the next page. So let's say goodbye to Stephen. First martyr. Here's Philip. And the painting of Rembrandt painted the baptism of the eunuch. So I think Philip was walking along, and a eunuch, a leader in the queen's treasury, was looking at the Old Testament prophecies, and it's like, hey, I want to be baptized. I don't understand this. Who can explain it to me? And Philip came along and explained it to him. And he said, well, why can't I be baptized? So he's just baptized along the side of the road by Philip. And probably first missionary, first baptism, first Bible study. Here, we'll put this over here. Acts 8:26, Philip baptized the eunuch, the servant of the queen. Next we have Paul. Where are Mary and Martha? Sorry, I'm looking for Judas Iscariot, Mary and Martha. And that was the death of Lazarus. So let me talk more about Mary and Martha. Where are they? Maybe these 2 women are Mary and Martha? So there's one story in the Bible where Martha did housework and was busy, and and Mary sat at Jesus' feet and listened. So Mary and Martha were sisters of Lazarus. One was busy working, one was sat and listened at Jesus' feet. Sisters of Lazarus. They were all friends and loved each other. Friends of Jesus. He died, but was raised to life from Jesus. So that's Lazarus. Mary and Martha. Now let's get back to, I think we're on Paul. And this painting is, here's a gold ring found in Tarsus, Paul's birthplace, opposite the conversion of St. Paul on the road to Damascus, depicted by Caravaggio. So Paul was this evil, doing a lot of evil things, killing Christians, religious leader, and then all of a sudden he was going down the road to Emmaus, I believe, and was blinded. And so like, and he had a vision, I believe by an angel. Why are you persecuting me? Go and go to a man and he will pray for you. And the scales came off of Paul's eyes. I believe he was baptized. He became a Christian, was baptized. And as Paul was a strong leader of the church in Acts. So God turned him around, stopped him, say, hey, what are you doing? All of us need to have a road to Emmaus experience where God knocks us on the head and says, hey, stop it. Paul is Acts 9:4. He was against God, against Jesus. He persecuted Christians. He was blinded at the road of Damascus. Is it Emmaus or Damascus? I guess Damascus, sorry. And he became a great Christian leader. So even though we have a bad history, the Bible is full of people with problems and bad histories, but God changes them, makes them into a good testimony, a good witness. And this is Paul. I believe he was martyred as an older person. He wrote a lot of letters, a letter to the Romans, letters to Ephesians, letters to Corinthians. In Athens, Paul preached on a hill known as the Areopagus. This page, St. Paul writing his epistles, attributed to Valentin de Bologna. So he's like, friends, brothers, sisters, get along with each other. So he was one of the great teachers of the church. Then we have Timothy. So I don't know much about Timothy. I don't know. Maybe there were 49 great leaders, and then they just threw in Timothy there. Rembrandt painted this portrait of Timothy and his grandmother in 1648. So I think Paul wrote a letter to Timothy. I don't know too much about him. Paul was, during his second journey through Asia Minor, which took him to Derbe, Lystra, and Antioch in Pisidia, Paul was joined by a follower named Timothy. Titus became a close partnership, for Timothy would soon become Paul's assistant, confidant, and protege. Luke, the author of the Gospel and of Acts, joined Paul on this journey as well. So many different characters of the Bible. We're all the body of Christ. I would say we're all the most influential figures of the Bible. But this is National Geographic's 50 most influential figures of the Bible.